Listen, AI is everywhere. Everybody's talking about ChatGPT or your favorite AI tool. And so I thought it was time that we have a conversation about how you can use ChatGPT to be kind of that extra arm in your business. Now, I love this as a topic. And as I kind of jump into it more, have more conversations with people, I'm always fascinated by the unique ways that people are using ChatGPT to streamline their business and do things that I had never even heard of. Stephen Lewis is my guest today, and he also has some incredible ideas for how you can use ChatGPT to just become that extra person that is on your team, that is helping you with the different areas of your business, from HR to market research to content creation, project management, all of the things. AI can be really, really impactful. Stephen Lewis is a marketer with 30 years of experience in copywriting and technology. His course, Make ChatGPT Your CMO, shows business owners how to turn ChatGPT into a 24/7 marketing consultant that gives expert advice tailored to their businesses. And as a small nonprofit or a lean team, this is a game changer when it comes to how do we increase, grow, build our content machine without having to hire somebody or without really understanding all of the things that we need to know. And what I love about Stephen's experience is that because he is a copywriter, he knows how to really take ChatGPT and turn it into the machine that you need to be authentic, to show up genuinely, and to be there for your audience as you're kind of walking through brand awareness, encouraging them to engage, and eventually to donate or pay for your products and services. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and it is such a great conversation. I recorded this a while ago, and I'm still thinking about all of the things and the nuggets that he shared and how I can actually put them into my day-to-day business. So I'm working on this all alongside you as well. Before we get into it, this episode is brought to you by Do Good University. Do Good University is a unique membership for nonprofit fundraisers and development professionals who really just need some support in all things nonprofits. Fundraising ideas, event ideas, marketing support. And what's even better is we go live every single week, myself and my partner in crime, Patrick Kirby, and we answer your questions live. So it's a great opportunity for you to come together in community with other nonprofit organizations from across the country that are going through what you're going through. You can ask questions, get answers, or simply just listen and get inspired by the conversations that you're hearing from other people that are working on their events, that are working on their capital campaigns, that are working on major gifts, or just social media, marketing, email stuff in general. So if you want 2 weeks free inside of Do Good University, all you have to do is go to thefirstclick.net/DGU. Check it out. You can watch the bonus podcast episode that Patrick and I did talking about community and nonprofits. But on that page, there is a link to sign up for your 2-week trial for free. Come check us out. Like I said, we're live every single week. You can join us, and we'd be happy to walk you through some of the on-demand opportunities that are inside of DGU as well, so that you can take your fundraising to the next level. Again, that is thefirstclick.net/DGU. Let's get into the episode. You're listening to the Digital Marketing Therapy Podcast. I'm your host, Sammy Bedell-Mulhern. Each month, we dive deep into a digital marketing or fundraising strategy that you can implement in your organization. Each week, you'll hear from guest experts, nonprofits, and myself on best practices, tips, and resources to help you raise more money online and reach your organizational goals. Hey friends, please join me in welcoming Stephen Lewis to the podcast. Stephen, thanks for being here today.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And we're talking all things ChatGPT, and AI kind of feels like this thing that's everywhere and it's permeating every single thing that we do in our life. But for a lot of us, we don't actually know how to use it, why to use it, what it's for. So before we kind of jump into specifics, why is this a topic that you enjoy learning about and sharing with people?
Long story short, I combine two backgrounds. So I started building websites in 1994, which, if anybody is old enough to remember, not many people even knew what a website was. So I started building them, and I'd explain to people what they were, and then people would say, "Oh, I've heard of this thing called email. What's that?" So that is my level of interest in technology. I like to be there first. But I'm also a writer. So for 30 years, I've been a professional writer. I've been a copywriter. So my job is persuading people to do something. That is what copywriting is. Mm-hmm. It's not, you need to entertain people. You need to get people to read what you're saying. You need them to feel informed and educated. That's what I used to do as a journalist. But then you're taking that extra leap of persuading people. And when ChatGPT came along, or even before that, actually, a couple of years before ChatGPT, we were using a tool called Jasper. They purport to be copywriting tools. That's their whole offer, that I'm coming for your job. So this tool is out there. It says it's coming for my job. The media is all about it. I thought, well, I need to learn what this is because it's the threat. And then I realized it was the most phenomenal tool to help me be better at my job. It could not do my job, but it could make me so much better at it. And that got me so excited that I did what has always been the pattern of my life, which is I learn it and then I teach it. So when I learned how to build websites, I became a journalist who wrote about the internet. And again, at a time when you were explaining what is the internet, where we still spelled out www dot. We still said the World Wide Web out loud. Nobody said the web because nobody would have known what the web was. So that's been my pattern. And I'm so excited about what ChatGPT can do to help people, whatever their job, be better at their job. But particularly if your job involves writing and persuading people, you need to know how to use ChatGPT properly, not the way that other people use it, properly.
Yeah, well, I, first of all, love your take on technology and your kind of willingness to learn. We did another podcast episode a long time ago. It might have been like even a year and a half ago. We'll link it up in the show notes about like how to bring your organization into technology, how to talk to people on your team about like embracing technology. Because to your point, it's not going anywhere. And if you learn about it, it's just going to help you. To your second point on if your job includes persuading people or sales, I mean, I think in any job that is the case, whether it's trying to figure out how to get your boss to do this new idea or how to get your child to clean up their room or like it's just really interesting like that. There is nobody that isn't doing that in some way, shape, or form in their job. And so I love that you said that, but I think anybody can use ChatGPT for all sorts of things, even if it's not work-related.
I think a lot of people don't realize that everything is persuasion. So I used to work briefly in an internal communications team in a bank. And what my colleagues didn't really understand was, just because you're writing to people who are paid by the bank to work there doesn't mean you don't have to persuade them to read the stuff that you send, even to open the email. Yeah. Just because the email comes from the CEO doesn't mean anybody's going to open it. You have to persuade them that it's worth opening. Everything is persuasion, and nobody likes the word selling. Everybody is selling something, even if it's I'm selling myself for you to pay attention to when you get home in the evening. Frankly, you're selling everything through that lens. Is selling, and ChatGPT can help you. I've got a talk that I'm giving at my daughter's school in April, which is how to persuade your parents to do whatever you want them to do without and have them be happy about it using ChatGPT. Like that's the talk that I'm giving. How to use ChatGPT to get your parents to bend to your will.
That's so fun. And talk about the right title for the right target audience, right? But before we get too far into this, for those that are listening to this and you've maybe heard the term ChatGPT or you've kind of seen it places but have never touched it or don't really know what it is, could you give kind of just the basic rundown of what ChatGPT is?
ChatGPT is what they call a large language model, which again is leaking into the world such that you may see even newspapers now just say LLM, as if we all know what a large language model is. ChatGPT, it's an LLM. Large language model just means it's a machine that has read an unimaginable amount of material. So you imagine that it's read your website and every other website in the world. It's read every book that they could feed into it, every blog post, every forum post, every academic journal, anything that its makers could get their hands on. OpenAI, the makers of ChatGPT and all these large language models, have fed that into the beast. So you train the beast on that so that the beast can then write on pretty much any topic. So that's the AI part. You say write something and the beast goes into the belly of its knowledge and starts writing. And it looks like it's super intelligent and it's thinking, but it's actually writing statistically one word at a time. So it writes the first word and then it says, what would the average human say next in this context? So if you've said, please write me an email to my boss explaining that I'm not coming in for the next week, it will say, okay, right, what would the average human write after this word? Then it's got those words, what would it write next? Which is why you get super bland writing, because the AI is asking quite literally, what would the average person say now? So the skill with ChatGPT is being like a potter. So you've got the clay on the wheel and you think of ChatGPT as the wheel and you've got to be there shaping it. So the more context you give ChatGPT, the better its writing will be. So if you say to it, for instance, my tone of voice is this, and then you describe your tone of voice, you've immediately changed the context so that it will write differently. Then you could say, and I'm writing to somebody who's 6 foot tall, lives in the Midwest, drives a truck, but also enjoys ballroom dancing. Well, immediately you're changing all of that context that ChatGPT is applying. So what you've got is this huge, unimaginable library of knowledge being dipped into by this incredibly intelligent computer controlled by you. And if you know how to control it, you are a human being sitting on top of the world's largest ever library and most intelligent ever computer, getting it to help you to do your job. But the thing that is not really widely explained is how do you get good at being the driver of that machine? Because it isn't typing, please write me a LinkedIn post, please write me a flyer about my program. That is not how you get the best out of it.
Well, and I feel like when it first started coming out or when people first use it, it looks very much like a search engine, you know, where you just type. So it almost feels like you should just be putting in prompts as if you're searching online. But really, you can have a whole conversation with it, right? So it's not just I put in my prompt, it spits something out, and then we're done with our day. So even if you start with a simplistic prompt, you know, we can still kind of refine and start to add more things into it. I mean, you can really have a conversation with it.
And it gets better because ChatGPT operates on something called the context window, which means when you're in a chat with ChatGPT, when you type something into that prompt box, and that prompt box is disastrous because that prompt box is this skinny little thing at the bottom. That implies...
It encourages short.
Yes. Oh, I should type in one sentence. It's like if you had a robot surgeon, right, that you had a button that said, push here for taking your appendix out. And you're like, oh, yeah, great. I'll just put my kid on the table and I'll hit that button. You're like, no, do not touch the button unless you know what you're doing, right? It's not that simple. So the prompt box is that thin, but I write ChatGPT prompts that could be 300 words long. Now, I don't write a 300-word long prompt necessarily every time. I have a library of them. I keep them. I work on a good prompt, and I keep them. But to your example, let's say you type in that one sentence and say, please, you know, write me an email about a program that I'm running. And it writes something. And you say, okay, I don't really like that. Then absolutely, you can say, look, I like where you're going with that, just as you would to a colleague. You know, a little bit of encouragement goes a long way. Oh, you know, I like what you did with that. I see where you were going. Actually, I hate it. You know, like I'm English, right? So that's what we do all the time. We go, oh, that's an interesting approach, which means to an English person, I absolutely loathe what you've done. Oh, interesting approach. So you give it a little bit of praise. Oh, you know, that's nice. I really see where you're going. Thanks for doing that for me. Because one, ChatGPT responds to flattery. I'm not joking. Like there's a tip that's been proved in academic research. They don't know why, but large language models like to be flattered. They work harder for you if you do flatter them. Genuine fact. I don't like that, but paragraph 1, could it be a bit shorter? Would you make it a little bit longer? Like, actually, you've got a small detail of the program wrong. It's actually this. So first is a mindset shift of it's not one and done. It's not like it's not like you load the gun, you fire, and the bullet either hits the target or it doesn't. As you say, it's a conversation, and you will have a much more fruitful conversation with ChatGPT if you think of it as a very intelligent but junior colleague who has only just joined the organization. So if you had somebody start in your business on Monday, you wouldn't just say, Sarah, write me a flyer about this program, and then swivel in your chair and leave Sarah to do her own thing while you go off to the kitchen and make yourself a cup of coffee because Sarah's got it. No, she doesn't. She needs some briefing. Brief ChatGPT.
Well, and even to take that analogy a step further, if you were writing it on your own, even as a seasoned copywriter, you don't write things one time and be done with it. You don't just write the first draft and say, this is brilliant, we're going to go ahead and send it off to the press. Like, I'm done. So how can you expect AI to do that for you as well? Because that's just not how you would work.
That's absolutely true. And also, this takes you to a really interesting point, is that I said that ChatGPT has read all of this stuff. It's understood all of this stuff. And that, I think, doesn't really come across. I think people think I can get into ChatGPT and I can say, write me a flyer or an email or a LinkedIn post or whatever it might be. But even if you never, ever, like, I understand there are people who are writers professionally, maybe they've been writing fundraising campaigns for a really long time and they're like, I know my organization. I'm a fundraising writer. I know how to do this. I will never diminish myself by sending something out that was written by a robot. And I get that. I get that point of view. I've been a professional writer for 30 years. It's how I've made my living. So I understand that. Even if you don't like that, then AI, as I say, is this library that you can tap into. So you can think, okay, I'm never going to let you write for me, robot. But you know some things. Why don't I work on that? And if you know how to get into ChatGPT's understanding, say, of people, then you can help your writing to be much more persuasive. So, I do all sorts of things like develop avatars and personas using what ChatGPT knows about people. But if you want, say, a simple example, for instance, you could say to ChatGPT, my organization does this. Our typical reader of our material is that. What can you tell me about their psychology when it comes to material from us? Now, that is an incredibly simplistic prompt, but you will get depth from that. Then you can use that in what you're writing. So, for instance, if you then did want to write, and we use our please write about my program example, you can say, please write about my program to these people that ChatGPT has just told you about. So exactly as you're saying, as a copywriter, I wouldn't just give a prompt and leave it. But equally, I wouldn't start with no brief. My brief would be, this is my organization. These are my goals. This is who I'm writing to. This is why they care about us. This is why they might ignore us and give money to somebody else. All of those things are, as a copywriter, if I came to your organization, I'd want to know that. What do you know about the person reading what I'm writing? And ChatGPT knows. And if you know how to ask it, there's gold. There's absolute gold. Like, you wouldn't believe what you could get ChatGPT to do for you.
Well, and I really want to double down on this real quick because I've heard this from a couple other people in the ChatGPT space as well. And I want to make sure that people hear what you said because I think it's critically important. Prompts matter. And you don't have to come up with them on your own. I love that you're talking about letting ChatGPT help you build those prompts and build those responses and help you understand how to use the machine just by asking questions and going from there. kind of taking the different layers of, okay, well, if I'm just at the part where I'm trying to figure out who my personas are, start with the basic questions and kind of build from there. I think that's critically important and such a great way for people to use this tool, especially if you're not a copywriter, especially if you're in a small team, especially if you can't afford a huge consultant. And so I just want to make sure we don't gloss over that, because I think, yes, it's good for content generation and things of that, but it's also good for helping you figure out how you want to create and craft the prompts. Like, let it help you do that.
I think one of this little prompt window that we're talking about being the sort of dangerous is because people then think I'm a fool if I can't work out how to use it, because obviously it must be so simple because all they give you is this little window. So they must think it's simple. You know, like when Apple sends you a product and there's no instruction manual anymore. And my mother says to me when she gets a new iPhone, she's like, how am I supposed to work this out? And you're like, well, Apple just thinks you will, or you'll Google. Like they don't see it as their problem anymore. Mm-hmm. They've sent you a thing in a nice box. And that's ChatGPT. It's a thing in a nice box with this window. But last time I was in Vegas, the thing that blew me away that I'd not noticed, I hadn't been for a long time and I hadn't noticed, was you've got the Strip. And then one block over is nothing. Like, it's like like a bail bondsman and lawyers for people who've been locked up and the bail bondsman next door. Like, so you've got the Strip, which is world famous. Everybody's seen it. Drone shots, helicopter shots. We've all watched Honeymoon. Like we've all seen the Strip. And then one block over, it's nothing. It's a barely illuminated street full of bail bondsmen. If you are just typing into ChatGPT things that you can think of, you're probably walking down the bail bondsman part of Vegas thinking, everyone talks about Vegas, but it's a bit rubbish. Like, there's nothing but bail bondsmen and crappy motels. Like, what's happening? And you're like, no, one block over, the Strip. And people are like, what's this Strip you're talking about? I keep reading about the Strip in the media. And this is why I think, I mean, obviously I run courses on ChatGPT, so I would say this, but to go and find somebody to show you what it can do is like somebody taking you from the back of the Strip going, I don't understand this, it's just rubbish bins and service entrances, to the Strip itself and go, oh my God, I get it. And my life has changed forever because I teach people how to use ChatGPT as a consultant. So as I say, whether they ever write anything or not, your team, and a lot of my clients are teams of one. It is a very lonely team. They are everything. And even if they work in an organization, they're the one person in their organization who does what they do. So it's lonely. They've got no one to bounce ideas off. Even if they work in a small team, nobody has time for you to swivel in your chair and say, hey, I'm working on something at the moment. Could you drop everything you're doing and spend a couple of hours with me doing what I'm doing? No, I can't. Yeah. I've got my own job. But if you know how to use ChatGPT as a consultant, you have that incredible thought partner where it can't do what you do. You can't do what it does. But together, it's like Iron Man, right? You've stepped into the suit. It's the whole thing. Yeah.
Well, so this leads me to I think another reason why some people stay away from ChatGPT or AI are security concerns. I know it's been interesting. When I look at my analytics, I consistently have strong referrals from ChatGPT to my website, which I don't, that it's showing up in people's results and whatnot. That's not something I'm controlling or trying to do. So kind of I know it's we could spend a whole episode on security and AI, but just kind of top level, as we think about a paid versus a free account, kind of proprietary information, like as we're kind of dipping our toe into this and having conversations or playing with the conversations inside of ChatGPT, what might we want to consider at a very basic level before kind of going all in?
ChatGPT will tell you at various levels of account that it doesn't use your what you put in doesn't go into the belly of the beast. It just stays in your conversation. Big technology, big tech, does not have what you'd call a super sunny track record at honoring what it tells you it's going to do. So I'm not saying that OpenAI doesn't honor that. But even if OpenAI does honor that, which one has to suppose they do, it only takes one engineer tinkering around under the hood to flick a switch accidentally, and your stuff falls through the trapdoor into the belly of the beast. So you do have to be aware of that as a risk. So I wouldn't be putting my DNA profile into it, for example. But on the other hand, most people's, and I'm not talking about your donor details, for instance, their addresses and their social security numbers and so on, but most people's quote unquote proprietary information isn't really all that proprietary, right? Like, it's not the formula for Coca-Cola. So you might, in your office, to make yourselves all feel very good, be talking about your proprietary processes and data and, your special sauce. And I don't mean to diminish that, because I've got my own special sauce, so I understand that. But does any other copywriter do kind of what I do in the order in which I do it?
Yeah.
Yes, they do. So I would be looking for a sensible, rational balance between what is truly, holy shit, if we accidentally lost that, like our donor list or somebody's social security number or an employee's health information, no, that's not cool. But if you're writing fundraising material, for instance, that is not going to be super proprietary. And most of my clients, for instance, work in marketing. So, fundraising being a form of marketing, obviously. What we're writing, what we're working on, is intended ultimately to get out to the public. So the inputs, generally speaking, aren't things that would be disastrous to us if they came out to the public, like, ooh, we don't really give the money to the children. It's
right.
not that kind of stuff, right? It's inputs in, like, we did really good work, we're putting that in, we got great results, we're putting that in, we're having an event on this day, we're putting that in. So I would be looking to form a sensible policy on what is really super secret. What would we be devastated if the newspaper got hold of the fact that we'd dropped that into the belly of ChatGPT, and what is actually not disastrous if it gets out there, and using that. So thinking, and then I think you have to be careful, because once you start using ChatGPT as a colleague, like really understanding its ability to be your colleague, you will want to put everything into it, because you will not want to run anything through through your world without asking ChatGPT for its opinion, which I will shut up in 1 second, just to say we haven't even talked about putting things into ChatGPT and asking it to give you an opinion back, even if it doesn't write, say, I've written this, what do you think of that?
Yeah. Well, I think there was a whole trend, wasn't there? Like at the end of the year, where people were putting things into ChatGPT about, like, tell me who I am, or tell me what my year is going to look like, or tell me what 2025 is going to bring to me. Like there's all those sorts of trends of things that people kind of create and are surprised by what it spits out. I think the opportunity for it is endless when you start to just play with it. But I think that's the point you're making, is you just have to kind of start playing with it. And kind of staying on top of it. And also, I love that you mentioned earlier, like, saving those prompts so that you can reuse them later if it's a repeated task that you're doing, so you don't have to create them over and over. And so I think kind of one of we might have to have you back for another episode, because I feel like there's so many other things that we can talk about. But the other thing that I think people get stuck on is my tone of voice. I don't know how to explain my tone of voice. Like, I feel like that's another buzzword that we use all the time, but don't really explain. So could you kind of maybe give people just a quick rundown of, if I'm trying to figure out what that is? I know you already mentioned just starting to have conversations, with the engine and see what happens, but kind of how do we start to develop that tone of voice if we don't have one already?
Tone of voice is a fantastic is a fantastic place to start because, as I said, ChatGPT writes average stuff in a context. So if you give it a really good tone of voice, and by good tone of voice, I mean a description of your tone of voice that's a couple of hundred words long. I don't mean I'm friendly. Thank you. That's my tone of voice. I'm professional and approachable. So there are a couple of ways to train it. And I actually have a free mini course. It's a 5-minute video. I call it a mini course because that sounds so impressive. But it's a 5-minute video that will show you how to create one way to create a tone of voice. And that way is to take the things that you've already written that you like and feed them through a prompt that asks ChatGPT to divine your tone of voice. And what you could do is take this short course and test. It's a good test of the little, write me a tone of voice based on this versus Stephen's prompt, generating a tone of voice, and you'll see the difference between a really good detailed prompt and a one-line tippity-tap prompt. So what I would do as a starting point is gather material you like that is written the way that you want it to sound, and then use my prompt, or if you just want to type, tell me the tone of voice of this, that would do it, but it's not going to be as good as my prompt. And it will tell you your tone of voice. And if you don't have anything that's written the way you really want it to sound, find somebody who writes the way that you want them to write. So let's be honest, in your game, there probably is somebody who does what you do. Like, you know, none of us is a unicorn, right? So find the organization that you think that your boss is always saying, I really like the way they do it. Oh, they're so good. Their stuff is amazing. They sound incredible. Go and find that and feed that in and say, what is that tone of voice? Because there's no copyright. And I understand some writers will be thinking, oh, no, but I'm plagiarizing. I don't want to plagiarize the other organization. No, you're going to say things in this tone of voice that are your things, your original things. Yeah. There's no copyright in a tone of voice. If I wanted to go out and sound like Coca-Cola sounds or Microsoft sounds or Apple sounds, I can absolutely go out and do that. I can't say I invented the iPhone. That would be a lie. But I could write about my ChatGPT courses in the tone of voice of Apple. That would be perfectly legitimate. So you don't even have to find another organization that does what you do. You might think, you know what, I really like the way Apple describes itself, or a politician that you like, for example, who you think, you know, they speak really clearly and authoritatively, and I like the way they come across. We'll go and find their material, their speeches, and feed those in. And remember that what you get at the end of this is editable. So you can say, hey, okay, you've described that politician, for example's tone of voice in this way. I like that. That's a good description of that person, but we actually want to be softer, or we want to be funnier, or we want to be lighter. You can type that in. You don't have to go, oh, God, ChatGPT's given me this, I'm stuck with it. Put it in a Word document and then edit it. And then you've got a tone of voice prompt that you can use over and over again. So every time you want to write something on behalf of the organization, you just say, hey, ChatGPT, I want you to write this, and this is the tone of voice that I want you to use. And it's game-changing for people because they suddenly see that it's not set in stone how ChatGPT writes, which, as we know, is bland. As we know, ChatGPT loves an emoji. ChatGPT's never met an emoji it doesn't want to use. Well, if you're fundraising for people in distress or a worthwhile cause, you probably don't want a lot of thumbs up or explosion emojis. So you can say in your tone of voice, please don't use emojis, right? You know, it's that sort of stuff that you can weave in. So that's what I would say. Feed things in that you like and get ChatGPT to describe the tone of voice. It is much faster than you trying to describe the tone of voice yourself.
I love how easy that is. I will challenge listeners to remove the term what you like. I'm going to just push back on that word specifically just for a second, because I think a lot of times as copywriters, content creators, or when we live in our world, there's things that we like that maybe don't necessarily resonate with our audiences as much. So if you're looking for words that you want to pop in or language that you've already written, I would take stuff that performs well. What emails got opened the most and clicked on the most? Which event email actually got the most clicks through to your website to where people actually made a purchase? What landing pages on your website work the best? What social media posts resonated the most? So like your statement was perfect and amazing and like super simplified. I just know so many nonprofits tend to make marketing decisions based off of that one board member that's the loudest in the room, or the one person on the team who is like, oh, well, this is how I use things, so therefore that's how our entire audience uses things. So I like, as a copywriter, for sure, what's working well, but I just want to challenge you as listeners. Don't just go with what you like. Take what Stephen said perfectly, but pay attention to the data and use what performs well with your audience so that you don't hit that mark. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there so we don't get lost in our personal preferences.
I mean, one thing that I teach people to do that I think would be really useful in this circumstance, because I think we've all met that board member, right? And it could be a board member, could be a colleague. There's always somebody who, as you say, is very comfortable saying things like most people. And you're thinking, no, you mean you. Like you have no data. Your data is you.
Yeah.
Most people. That to me is the reddest of all red flags when somebody tells me what most people think. But what you can do, and this is super advanced, and what I'm saying, I just want to give people an idea of the destination to which you can get if somebody can show you how to get there, is you can create a very detailed picture of your reader using ChatGPT because it knows them. Then, and this blows people's mind when I show them how to do it, you can run a focus group with those readers. So as an organization, you might have an ideal donor who is this, right? But you might have a secondary ideal donor who is maybe not as much that. Maybe they don't have as much money, or they're not as philanthropic, or whatever it might be. You can have a panel of them, say 3 of them in a room, and you can talk to them, which sounds mad that you can have 3 avatars in a room and you can say, hey, I've written this email. What do you guys think? I don't write anything now. I'm writing a landing page. That's my big project at the moment, a sales page for a product. I'm writing the whole thing in consultation with 2 ideal readers. So every time I write a paragraph, I put that to them and they come back to me, and they're different. So they have different agendas and they will give me feedback. But to your board member, the beauty of a process like that is to be able to say to your board member, I absolutely get that in your research, you've discovered that most people, but we ran a focus group with our avatars and we put this to them and this is how they responded. And I know this sounds mad, but this is academically verified that large language models, which you now, having listened to this, will refer to immediately as an LLM. You'll be like, don't say large language models. That's like saying World Wide Web. It's an LLM.
No.
LLMs produce valid, insightful, and deep answers that are equivalent to the answers that equivalent humans would give. It, as I say, validated by academic research. So you then have, when you're in that board meeting or you're dealing with that difficult colleague who knows what everybody thinks, you've actually got data that you can go into. So it's not you saying, I think this, and them saying, well, I think that, and most people think the same as me. You've actually got data. These are the kinds of things that if you learn how to use ChatGPT properly, you can achieve. And a paid ChatGPT account is $20 a month. So you can get all these tools that want to, charge you $99 a month to do like one bit of the puzzle. But if you know how to drive ChatGPT for $20 a month, you can do it all.
I want to be explicitly clear here. So you're saying that you're not doing this focus group with real humans. You've just got these avatars that are created inside of ChatGPT that are consistent, that you have really honed in on. This is exactly who we're talking to, so that you can feed it your content and get real results.
Yes.
back. So it takes you a matter of seconds when you're trying to edit your copy.
Oh, it is absolutely phenomenal. So yes, you are right. The academic term for these avatars, so people have now absorbed large language model, is LLM. Avatar is a synthetic persona, and they talk about synthetic personas and synthetic data. And yes, you are talking about inside your computer, inside ChatGPT, you are hosting a focus group where you can ask anything you want. Because if you got your best donor in the room, you probably wouldn't want to say, we're thinking about doing, cutting this program and doing this thing, in case the donor went, that's horrendous, don't tell me that. Right. Or I know from not-for-profit clients that people get terribly involved in how much your admin costs. They always want to know, is my money going on to the cause or to the paperclip? And you just... I'll be honest with you, because I was on the committee of the RSPCA when I lived in Hong Kong, so animals. And we got that question all the time. And I'm not a violent person, so I'm only meaning metaphorically. I did want to give the person a little tap, 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 tap. Because we employed vets, and they would say that our vets were paid too much. And I would be thinking, so our vets are supposed to take a big fat pay cut, so essentially donate thousands of dollars a year to the cause by taking a pay cut, because you think they should be... I said, how much of your salary are you donating every year? Like, do you take a 20% pay cut so you can give... No, you don't. Tip, tap, tip, tap, tip, tap. So I don't like it. I don't like the argument. But you wouldn't have wanted that donor to come into a room and for you to say, listen, we're about to give our vets a 10% pay rise. What do you think? Mm-hmm. And for the guy to say, you don't want to discuss it. The beauty of having a synthetic persona is you can ask it anything you want and it will give you a valid answer, but you're also not affecting the genuine relationship with a genuine donor. So you can do all kinds of research with these synthetic personas without worrying. Like, let's say you wanted to change the name of your organization. Well, you might not decide to do it. So you might not want to discuss with donors that we're thinking about calling ourselves this. And the donors don't like it, or they do like it, and then you ultimately decide you don't want to do it, and they're like, oh, but I told you most people would love it. So you can do all kinds of things with these synthetic personas with safety, because when, particularly I think in a not-for-profit, life is not safe a lot of the time. So the more safe you can, and you don't necessarily want to be bold unless you're sure that it's going to work, or to change things unless you're sure that it's going to be accepted. And this can give you a level of confidence because ChatGPT, again, when you know how to do it, can run the world, can run these things for you in an incredible way. And as I say, completely validate it.
I would have never thought to use it that way, but that's so smart, especially for smaller teams as you're brainstorming and working through things before you kind of have to make those decisions or do things that are going to reflect on your donors or make them scared or skittish or your board members. So I think that's wonderful and such a great place to kind of wrap this up. I mean, we could talk, we've barely scratched the surface of what can happen within ChatGPT, but I hope this episode has really encouraged you to jump in and try it and see what happens and see how it can support you in all of these different ways. Stephen, I know you mentioned you've got a free resource, so we'll make sure to get that linked up in the show notes here. But if people want to connect with you and learn more about how you support organizations and how to connect with you, how can they do that?
The agency that I run is called Tailist, tale as in telling tales, because we're storytellers ultimately. So it's TALEIST .agency, and there's lots of details about how we work there, and also my email address. There are email addresses all over the site, so you can get in touch and ask what we can do with ChatGPT or what courses we have that would level you up. Just a little plug for the course. I get an email every day from people who we have a course called Make ChatGPT Your CMO. I've run a lot of courses in my life. People have never used the words life-changing as often as they have for this. And the reason people find it life-changing, and so I'm not plugging the course, I'm plugging learning how to use ChatGPT. The reason they find it life-changing is because people are tired. And having an always-on, energetic, intelligent colleague to bounce ideas off and to give you insights and to show you new ideas or why something might not have worked as well as you hoped, it's just breathing new life into lots of people I know who are beaten down by circumstances externally or how tough their job is. Suddenly they've got a colleague to work with for $20 a month. It's an incredible boost.
I love that. Well, we will have all of that linked up in the show notes at thefirstclick.net/296. Stephen, thank you so much for all your time and your insights and strategies today. It was amazing.
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so if you haven't, in the middle of this episode, already gone to make sure you have a ChatGPT account or checked out your tools with your favorite AI elements, I don't know what you're waiting for. I loved this episode so much, and it was such a great way to really think about how we are using these tools to supplement our business. Not to take over, but just to help us get more done with less time. Now, again, if you want to check out the show notes and additional resources that Stephen talked about and check out the freebie that he mentioned so that you can get your prompts going for your ideal customer, you can go to thefirstclick.net/296. For now, I hope you will subscribe wherever you're listening. And if you're on YouTube, leave us a comment about your favorite key takeaway from this episode. Otherwise, if you are on Apple Podcasts, we would love a review. That really helps us get this podcast in front of more people. Episodes come out every single week, and we are so excited to be here. And thank you for taking the time to listen to the Digital Marketing Therapy Podcast. I will see you in the next one.